Ministry of Justice has defended the vaccine schedule after being criticised for offering jabs to sex offenders like Gary Glitter.
But with the confined nature of prison environment, should prisoners be vaccinated before others in order to protect people around them? Well, joining us now to discuss this is former Chief Crown Prosecutor Nazir Afzal and Chairman of West Yorkshire Police Federation, Brian Booth.
Good morning to both.
To both of you. Brian Booth, what do you think of this? I mean, the natural reaction, I guess, for most people is horror. Why are convicted sex offenders, rapists, murderers even being considered for vaccination before the main populace? But there are other arguments that say, well, it's for the well-being and safety of other people in the prisons, including the officers.
It's an absolutely disgusting decision that's being made here. And my colleagues, it's just another kick in the teeth from the government. They really do need to get a grip of this. I understand the argument that key workers need the vaccine and prison officers must be part of that. I would say give the prison officers the vaccine, but not convicted murderers, paedophiles and rapists.
Well, hang on. Sorry, Brian Booth. What are you suggesting? That people who have been convicted of an offence should be left at risk of death because of their conviction?
They should be prioritised in a queue which is right and morally right. These people are giving nothing to society, whereas my colleagues on the front line are giving everything. We've lost police officers and we have police officers currently in hospital fighting for their lives. This cannot be right. These individuals are giving nothing to society are prioritised over my colleagues.
When you describe it as a priority, presumably the priority is that they are in the age band according to the Joint Committee's schedule on vaccination.
Yes, and this is run again by doctors and very eminent scientists. And again, it's the government being led by the science, but there's a moral duty here to protect our key workers. And I would say it goes further than police officers as well. It's all the key workers. It's the shop workers that are keeping our shops open. It's the fire officers, and it's the people who are running the buses and keeping the country going. You know, we have a really serious situation here, and we've got to get behind the key workers and support them before people who are languishing in prison.
OK, let's bring in Nazir Afzal. You were the former chief prosecutor, so on your watch, Gary Glitter was prosecuted and convicted. What is your reaction to this?
Well, we treated him no differently to any other offender. Piers, the disease doesn't discriminate, so neither should the cure. We don't make health judgments on character, on the basis of character. Brian is. I'm sure there are people who are offended by what's happened. But what about ex-prisoners? Do we treat them the same as the current prisoning? No, we've got to apply risk and need. And in the case of Gary Glitter, and he's one of the people that's in prison because of my teams. He's over 70, so he on that priority list you mentioned, he'd figure up on there. And we know that prisons have high churn rates. We know that staff need to be protected. I totally agree with Brian. I think the police and prison officers should be prioritised. There's 125,000 of them. There were 500,000 jabs yesterday. So on my logic, that's 6 hours it would take to.
But why should? Well, I mean, people will be asking, as Brian Booth did, why should Gary Glitter, a convicted sex offender, get a vaccine before maybe health workers or care workers who still haven't had a vaccine yet? Why should they not be prioritised, as he puts it, from a moral perspective as well as a health perspective? They're in the front line. They're just as exposed to the virus, if not more so, than Gary Glitter. It does stick in the gullet that someone like him is getting a vaccine before people that are far more morally deserving.
I don't disagree with that, but at the same time, we've got a limited supply, and we've got to make judgments on the basis of need and risk. Now, prisoners get moved around a lot. Now, thousands of prisoners will leave today, and thousands more will arrive. We therefore need to ensure that they don't transmit the disease to others and protect others as a result of giving them the vaccine. That's what's happening. It's about prioritising those that are greatest at risk. And yes, I absolutely agree with him. It does sound wrong that somebody like Gary Glitter, who has offended the way he did. But where do you draw the line? What's the point?
Well,
there are thousands of sex offenders out in the community.
One point I meant to Brian Booth, apparently the illegal immigrants in the country are being encouraged, who are not registered to GP surgeries, are being encouraged to register with no penalty for their status so that they can get vaccinated. Because if you don't vaccinate the million or so illegal immigrants, I'm not sure what the exact number is, if you don't vaccinate a huge swathe of the population who may happen to be here illegally, then the whole country is at risk.
I just stay here.
In essence, there has got to be a priority list, and people will get their jab down that list. I know it's difficult. Everybody wants a jab, but I will reiterate the point that certain people, there are things that can be put in place. So let's talk about people in prison. You can put them in solitary confinement if they're such a high risk, and they can wait their turn for the vaccine. Police officers do not have that choice. They have to go into domestic situations, deal with violent individuals, and risk every day contracting COVID. That is not acceptable.
And Nazir Afzal, I think nobody is going to argue, although the government is slow on it, that there are frontline workers, emergency workers, who absolutely should be protected against this horrific virus and who are exposed to too many people on a daily basis. But do you think it's dangerous to have a conversation about the moral justification for individuals to deserve the vaccine?
That's my point. We shouldn't be having a justification. We shouldn't be thinking about the morality of something. It should simply be on the basis of need and risk. And yeah, absolutely, health workers who are frontline should be protected. And I think they are being protected. They are up that priority list. But if we start applying this judgmental approach, we're going to find ourselves down a slippery slope. You know, there are people who I don't think should be vaccinated because they're very nasty people. That's the kind of conversation we shouldn't be having in our community.
OK, we're going to leave it there. Nazir Afzal and Brian Booth, thank you both very much indeed. It's a hot potato, that one, isn't it? I mean, in a way, we are making judgment. We've got the 9 rungs, haven't we, of the ladder. It's based on age, but also the type of job you do. That is a calculation we're making about who is more deserving. That, in its way, is a form of moral judgment.
But that deservingness, if you like, is based on your risk of serious illness and your risk of dying, and, of course, people in prison.
But as Brian Booth said, you could put Garraway in a solitary cell. You could do that.